Welcome, everyone, to a fun uh, pre draft combines interview. My name's Oma. I'm joined here with Grigorovich helping me ask some questions, and we're interviewing Supreme from the NA Nades. How are you doing, Supreme?
Good, I'm doing great. How are you guys?
I'm doing great.
Doing good, doing good.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and just jump right into things. So, my first question for you is with you're looking at the draft board, how comfortable are you feeling going into this next season?
Um, well, to be honest, I don't look at the draft board as the first thing. I look at the team that I have around me. So Greg actually is one of my AGMs. He's been with me for a while now. And the other one is Willie, King Willie. He's a great guy as well. So having these guys that they've been in the league for a long time, they know how everything works. They help me with making trades and the scouting, which is a really big part of combines, just gives me immense confidence to know that we're gonna have a team that can help us out. And then on top of that, now we look at the draft board. We've got great guys already signed with us, and we're hoping to keep a number of them. I'm sure everyone's already heard we have 11 picks in the first 5 rounds for Challenger, and I think we're going to have 5 or 6 keeper picks as well. Um, so the story behind that is back in season 7, we made a few trades and we had a few keeper picks. So when we came into season 8, we actually had 8 picks in the first 5 rounds. Obviously, we had 5 keeper picks. We knew who we wanted. So we didn't need those extra picks. So we went and turned that around and somehow ended up with 11 picks this season. And we're in the same situation where we have 5 or 6 keeper picks, so we don't need those extra picks. So we're trying to once the transaction's open, we'll talk to the other GMs. There's a few new GMs as well. See what we can do with those other picks. Elite's going to be interesting this season because we are going to have. I mean, based on the statistics, I'm guessing that a couple of our guys are going to get bumped up to Premier. They actually play ESEA together. Kami, Sleepy, Toldman, Jack, and I forgot the last guy. He's gonna kill me after when he hears this. So Elite's going to need a complete rebuild, basically. Challenger, I think, should be fine, and Prospect. Prospect's actually one of the best things, one of the best tiers for me to scout, because Prospect is all about finding that one or sometimes two low MMR players that are diamonds in the rough. If you talk about Greg, for example, he was actually tier minimum MMR when he came into the league, and he's an all-star with 2 seasons in a row. Apache came in; he was very very low MMR as well. So finding those low MMR, high impact players is really important for prospects. So I am. This is, to be honest, this is my favorite part of being a GM. Is the preseason stuff, is trading picks, trading players, doing all the scouting and all that. So I'm really looking forward to it this season.
Now you spoke about it a little bit, but if you could just talk a little bit about which tier or multiple tiers do you think is going to be the most challenging for you to build an effective team going into this next season? Of course, you have a good background in each of these each of these tiers, but is there one that you think might be more difficult based on the draft picks or in current signs, or what are you kind of looking at there?
So I'll go tier by tier. So for Premier, I'm guessing that we're gonna have 6 to 7 keeper picks. And this is the worst part about being a GM, is having to cut players, especially because they're all so nice and really great players. Last season, unfortunately, we had to cut A2 and Dark Potato, um, two arguably of the best players in the tier, just because we couldn't fit them with the MMR. Dark Potato went on to win the tier. Very, very well deserved. So I'm not really worried about Premier in that sense. Elite is going to be difficult, just because we're going to have to do probably a complete rebuild. So it's going to be like, we're working from scratch. So we're going to see if we can make some trades there. Maybe, use our one cross tier to get an extra elite pick or two and see what we can do there. Challenge is also going to be interesting because we don't know yet if Almom and the DRX code are coming back for sure. So depending on that, we'll see if we need to, pick up someone else, for example, or do something like that. I know one issue we had was a lack of a dedicated IGL. So I know Tom's been practicing. I've been practicing a little bit. So I'm hoping that next season we can go into that and have a little bit of a bigger impact. prospect is probably the one that I'm a little bit worried about. Um, Paul is, based on his stats, I think he was like top six or top five, by his rating. I'm guessing that he's probably going to get bumped up to challenger, and that leaves a hole in prospect that needs to get filled because he is one of the best fraggers in not just prospect. I'd say he'd probably in at least the top half of challenger. He's really, really good, and he was another low MMR player that we managed to scout. We did pick up Carrie as well, first overall last season. She is surprisingly like she's really good. So she will hopefully lead the team. We have again Apache's there. He's really good aimer. We have Torque and Columbus. They're really good players as well. So finding that fifth um, that we can fit in the MMR is the biggest issue. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge in the draft.
Yeah. So you obviously looking at the board and you talked a little bit about it. You have 11 challenger picks. So
Yeah,
what are your plans for that? How are you planning to use those picks? Because obviously, you're going to cut down to five. So if you go into the
right.
draft with even say eight or nine, that's still, three to four players you're going to have to cut come regular season. So what do you think? What's your thought process going in, like after the draft happens? Dust settled, and you have multiple players to work with, and you're gonna have to form a team out of that. Like, what's your goal or strategy for that?
So I think the biggest thing depends on if Tom and Rob, Amam and DRX Code are going to be staying. Because if they are, they've been playing on ESA with Willie. And between those three, me and Greg, we've played so much Face It and CSC together. Like we go on like literally we go on like a first name basis. We know what everyone looks like. We know where they live, which is like stuff we probably shouldn't know about other CSC guys. So it really comes down to if they're coming back to CSC. If they do, honestly, you'll probably just stick with that five, assuming we can fit them MMR wise, and just trade the picks maybe for next season or use it for a cross tier. If they leave, then that's a little bit of a different scenario. Um, I'll probably still trade a few of the picks, maybe keep like seven or eight. Obviously, there'll be a few keeper picks in me and Greg and Willie. Um, we'll try and pick up a few extra players that we know we like, based on the scouting or based on who's available as a free agent, and then leave a couple of picks as well for maybe the mid or later rounds and see because you can do all the scouting you want, but at the end of the day, the way they fit in your specific team may not work out, which is why we like to run a few just nan 10 mans, in between our sometimes Chally, sometimes prospect, sometimes elite teams. We'll just pick up a few extra people, see if there's any DEs that want to play, some people that we have on our radar. Because it's different, right? Playing in the combines is just a 10 mans with random people. Uh, and you can click heads as much as you want, but for example, if the comms aren't good or they're a little bit toxic, or maybe this the chemistry doesn't fit, it really it really depends on all these little factors that you can't really tell just by looking at the combine. So just personally, I would rather have a few extra picks just in case. And like late round picks always, they have some curveballs. Um, and Bastos was like a round six pick, and he's like one of the better players in the tier. Um, there's a lot of players that go late round just because they're not known, or sometimes they drop. So having a pick there is beneficial, even if like you're probably gonna cut him. I think Rob we got in the sixth round or the seventh round, and he turned out to be one of the best players on the team. He had the highest MMR of our entire team. So uh, keeping a few extra picks is important, and seeing if Tom and Rob are coming back is gonna be the deciding factor.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, looking a little bit into the mind of a GM, so to speak, can you talk a little bit about what your scouting strategy is, especially with combines coming up in about
Hmm.
23 hours from now?
Yeah.
Do you like to get in there and play the combines and kind of look at that way, or will you just kind of be sitting back and observing in the Go TV channels, or how do you like to do your scouting?
Yeah, so the biggest benefit, we do have four tiers, so there's a little bit more to scout, but we also have two AGMs that can help out. Greg, like I said, is one of our AGMs. Willie's the other one, so I usually have them, go into the combines and just sit and listen, because you can tell a lot just by the comms that you're getting from a few people. I personally also like to hop into games. and kind of I don't want to say manipulate because that's the wrong word, but I want to like change the game a little bit to test players. So last season or the season before, when I was in prospect, for example, I would go into the prospect queue, play with four other random people, and just not IGL. I would literally not say a single word until someone else said anything, and you see first, you see who's the one to step up, who's the one to make the call when no one's saying anything. What kind of strats they're running. The other thing is when you're in the game, you have a little bit of a better idea of how the comms are working, how the players game sense is working, because that's another big thing, especially in the lower tiers in prospect and challenger. Like your aim can be good, but the game sense will also make a big difference. So personally, yeah, like I like to get into the games and have my AGMs also, hop into, for example, Elite and Premier. We can't play because we suck, but we have them sit in the voice chat, listen to the comms, and then also have my elite and premier players. Premier, obviously, I'm not going to need it this season, but Lily, for example, last season, I'd tell Sleepy, hey, just go and, any game that you're in, keep an eye on the players, see who you like, see who plays well. And, he did a really good job and built a really good team as well. That he built a really good core. Unfortunately, it didn't work out because we had, a couple players that didn't work out with the chemistry, but it, it that's the kind of thing you just gotta get into the as many games as possible, and try and get on the ground level because the stats don't show the whole story.
Cool. Do you? I guess it's more of a fun question. Do you have any like weird, I guess, draft rituals? Like, it comes draft night, you're gonna put on a suit and you're gonna look all nice and pretty. Are you gonna, do you have any interesting, just maybe some goofy things, just stuff to keep things lighthearted? What is like your draft night routine?
Nothing in particular, to be honest. I like to do most of the prep beforehand so that we're not scrambling last minute. Because a few seasons ago we had that where we didn't have as much prep as we normally do, and uh, we had, I think, like the eighth or ninth pick, and we had literally like five different options, and all five of them got picked before us, and we're just sitting there like, these guys took all of our picks, and then it happened like two more times in the same tier. Um, so yeah, I just like to make sure we have all of our prep done so we can actually enjoy the draft as well. Like we last season we were sitting in our NAN voice chat and just making jokes and everything because we had so many keeper picks. We were just chilling. So I don't have any particular rituals in that sense, but I do like to get all the prep done beforehand so we can enjoy the draft rather than stress out and have to do things last minute.
So you're someone who's known for either making extremely good trades or absolutely horrible trades, depending on which end of that trade you're on. For you, it tends to be pretty good, of course, especially just looking at your challenger picks there for this
Yeah.
season. How do you construct your trade offers, and what kinds of things do you look for in what GMs you target that might be vulnerable? And can you just talk a little about your trade history?
Yeah, so yeah, like you said, we had 9 trades last season, which was the most ever. Rask was right behind us with 8. Um, it's not targeting a specific GM, but it's looking at the draft board, who has picks where. Because a first round pick can be first overall or 12th overall, and that's a really big difference. Especially when you have a few elite players in the tier. For example, in Challenger, Redondo, was touted as one of the best players in the tier based on the combines, and he went fourth overall because there were a couple of keepers. So one of the things we like to do is we're blessed because we have a lot of keepers. We have really good retention in our franchise. So we're able to move back in a round and get something out of that. So for example, let me take a look here. Yeah, so with Sinky, what we did was we had the first overall pick in Elite, but we had Sleepy as a keeper pick. So what we did was I gave him the first overall for his fifth overall, and then I gave him the 24th overall for his 20th overall. And because, we have the leverage in that scenario, he threw in the 29th overall pick. So just by virtue of number one, we had a keeper pick in the first round. Number two, we knew who we wanted in the second round, and he wasn't going to go early, we thought. and just knowing, getting in the head of the other GMs, what they're looking for, what they need, we were able to get a free pick from that. And basically, we just did that like 9 times. Um, I feel bad for Mecca because his scenario was a little bit difficult. He had no keepers, so he had to build from scratch. And his thought was, let me give up a little bit of season 9 to try and make season 8 a little bit better. And like I said, we had 3 extra picks. We had an extra second round in Chali and 2 third round picks. So I traded all 3 of those picks, and then we ended up with a few extra season 9 picks. And just by doing that with a number of GMs, it worked out really well for us. And then there's also the flip side, right? Like in Prospect, we had um, the end of the first round, so we were eighth overall, and then we had the first and the second round. But we had a keeper in the second round, so I didn't mind moving back. We made a trade with Hawkish, so we could get the first overall pick because he had a keeper. So by swapping that, and then we benefited from that, and he also benefited because we gave him an elite pick, and he gave us one of his extra challenger picks that he didn't need. So it's really all about trying to figure out what the other GM needs, and just working around that. And the other thing is also, it's not just you can't always just go after one GM. You kind of want to have multiple offers, and that puts pressure on the other GM. So for example, with Annex was in a very difficult situation because he had I think he was missing 2 or 3 picks in prospect, uh, or in Challenger. So he needed to make trades, and we knew that scenario. So what we did was we had a player called Cinestix, and unfortunately, because of just the way the MMR works, we couldn't fit him, and I knew we had to cut him. But instead of just cutting him and letting him go for free, we were able to get a pick out of Annex because Annex didn't want to risk Cinestix just going into free agency and then anyone can pick him up. So he gave up a pick in season 9 so that he can guarantee getting that player, and I think it turned out really well for him. But on the other hand, there's also scenarios where we kind of lose out a little bit. We had A2, who is arguably one of the best players in Premier, but we had to cut him because his MMR was too high. So what we did was we traded him, who I think he went in the third round, and we traded him for a seventh round, literally like second last pick in the draft. And the only reason we did that was so that I knew he would be put on a team, that would value him. And they ended up, I think they were in the finals or they were in like late round in the playoffs. So it's really all about just using your assets to your advantage, trying to make smart decisions, not rushing anything, and making sure that you understand what the other GM's looking for and use that to your advantage.
Sounds very good. I think we're out of questions. So thank you, Supreme, for coming on here, giving us an
Yeah,
awesome
for sure.
interview. Thank you, Greg, for helping out with questions.
Absolutely.
And yeah, Supreme, we wish you good luck in combines and on the
Thank you
draft.
very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.